Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. It also happens to be my birthday. Always a special day. So, I wanted to share with you today a little bit about social intelligence and why it is important. So, we're going to spend a few minutes today talking about some statistical trends that we are seeing in the area of social intelligence. We're going to talk a little bit about what social intelligence is and is not, and what might be causing some of these trends. And then at the end, of course, we'll talk about ways that we can work together to get some solutions if you or some of your franchisees lack social intelligence. So this is me a few years ago, a few pounds ago. I'm chief scientist and president here at Zorakle. We are a profiling tool based on a meta-analysis approach. We use 7 statistically validated sciences within our tool, including an emotional and social intelligence logic that's built right within the tool. Many of you are familiar with this tool, so I won't go into too much detail regarding the individual sciences. Just know that everything that we are focused on at Zorakle Profiles is to help the franchisor and the franchise broker facilitate healthy, profitable Z to Zor matches. We know that a franchisee that's compatible is going to validate better, is going to retain better, it's going to cost less to train and support. Overall, is going to be more satisfied, but most importantly, he or she is going to perform well. They're going to ramp up better, and they're going to have greater performance year over year. So in a nutshell, what is social intelligence? So I actually borrowed this from the internet. I thought it kind of encapsulated it beautifully. Social intelligence is basically the ability to get along with others and to get them to cooperate with you, whether that's as an employee, as a vendor partner, or whatever it is. It's getting them to cooperate with you. Sometimes it's referred simply as people skills, but it's really more than that. SQ includes an awareness of situations. We're able to read what people are thinking, what people are feeling, what that behavior means, and we're able to understand social dynamics that govern them, what hierarchy is involved in that social dynamic. And we have a knowledge of interaction styles. We adapt our strategies and our interaction so we can achieve what we want and we can help them achieve what they want. It also involves a certain amount, naturally, of self-insight and a consciousness of our own perceptions, judgments, and reaction patterns that we have. So here are 12 signs that you or your franchisee might lack social intelligence. They handle conflict poorly. They either avoid conflict altogether or they go on an attack. They lack empathy. So they just don't seem to get what other people are thinking or feeling or what that gesture means or what that face means. And they really sometimes just don't care. They're poor listeners, poor communicators, and they just seem to have poor people skills. They have difficulty maintaining relationships with their employees. They don't bond. Their friendships are all short term. Their relationships are always short term. They end for one reason or another. They tend to judge quickly. They make assessments of people before truly getting to know someone, and they're quick to also point a finger or blame. They're unwilling or unable to collaborate. It's more their way or the highway, or they just flat out are proximity workers or isolated and don't like working with others to start with. They provide poor service. They're not conscious or aware of the needs of their customers and therefore tend to falter in that area. they're not good at building consensus. So they're not good at getting the opinions and the advisement of others and building a consensus before they kind of move in a particular direction. They're unable to get others to embrace an idea or take action. They lack influence. They lack leadership. They lack the ability to cast a vision or cast an idea and get others excited and jumping on board and doing what needs to be done to get there. They lack diplomacy and tact. They may be too direct or too harsh or unaware how their words or approach may be hurtful to others. They seem kind of clueless in social situations, inserting themselves at the inappropriate time, one-upping someone, or just flat out not understanding the decorum of what a social situation is calling for. And number 12, they lack substance and they lack depth, what I might call gravitas. Things seem much more superficial to them. There's not an emotional or spiritual depth. Phil, could I have you put yourself on mute?
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Thank you. I'm hearing something else in the background too. So if you could help me kind of mute anything that's going on there, that would be helpful. All right, let's move on. So why this topic and why now? Oftentimes we come up with these webinars based on feedback we're getting from our brokers and our franchisors with concerns. And this definitely has been a serious concern over the last 7 years. I'm going to show you some statistics of what is going on in this world where folks seem to be lacking leadership skills. They seem to be lacking empathy skills. They seem to be lacking just normal common sense or ability to engage people at a deeper level. So we've been having many conversations with you as our clients and also paying attention to what's going on in the marketplace, which sort of drove me back to the numbers. So what we're noticing is a statistical trend that in our opinion is a dangerous trend in the world, but specifically for us in franchising, and how that might down the road affect how a franchisor does business and how they might train and support and build a business around individuals who seem to lack social intelligence. So this is why now, a few months back, we did a webinar on emotional intelligence and some of the trends that we were seeing there, and it was one of our best attended webinars ever. And so we wanted to dig more deeply into the social intelligence. Many of you know that this work comes from Dr. Daniel Goleman. He wrote a book a number of years ago, Emotional Intelligence, and many have picked up the work and continued the research on the emotional and social intelligence of us as individuals and specifically as business owners, and the effect financially that has, and also on the customer experience and how it affects our leadership styles, etc. So I wanted to give you sort of big picture statistics that you might find interesting on a year-to-year basis. I also separated it based on generation. So this is showing us a trend that is encompassing all generations, but a serious trend that we are seeing with the millennials, and we're going to see some differences once Generation Z. I've been doing research with the Zs recently, but we're noticing some social intelligence trends. So this is the overarching, all 9 markers put into a pot, all generations in a pot. We can see some trends from 2013 through 2019, as of just a few days ago when I was putting this data together for us today. We're noticing just overall a negative trend in the 9 social intelligence markers from generation to generation. But please also note that from generation to generation, there's a negative trend also. Even the baby boomers and Generation Xers are having some dips in certain areas. But for sure, once the millennials start to take over leadership roles and become more active in franchising, we can see they're coming in with much less social intelligence than the prior 2 generations. And what are we going to do about that as it relates to our business models and in franchising? A few other highlights, and we're going to dig more deeply into this in future webinars, but I wanted you to kind of get a big picture here. These are 5 of the 9 markers: leadership, empathy, conflict management, team building, and organizational development. So you can see our Generation X actually has some really strong leadership skills, and many, of course, as you know, are stepping into those roles within our franchise community and, of course, out there buying businesses. We're starting to see the baby boomer leadership skills starting to drop. This could be just a stage of life situation or a necessity situation, but we are starting to see that Generation X is stepping up. But notice our millennials, they're coming in with very low leadership skills. They have much more of a pack mentality versus a lead mentality. And so they're coming into franchising as franchisees with less initiative, less leadership, less ability to convince others. And these things we're going to start to notice going down the road. Same way with empathy, dramatic drops. Generation to generation, Generation X, much more pragmatic, and then we see our millennial generation with very low empathy or understanding one another scores. Conflict management. I'm sorry, when you're in business, there's always conflict with employees, with vendors and suppliers, sometimes even with customers, unfortunately. And we can see there's a negative trend going on here in conflict management, where our Generation Xers and our millennials in particular are conflict averse. They just don't like it, and they don't have the skills to deal with opposite views of things, and they don't have the ability to bring difficult situations to the surface and solve them. Naturally, as managers, leaders, franchisees, this is going to cause a problem. Now, what they do have in spades is the ability to build a team. They love to collaborate, and they love to be part of a team. So I think there's ways franchisors can exploit this wonderful trend that we're seeing here, and we can see with our boomers and our Xers, not so much into the kumbaya, not so much into the team building. And then another huge negative correlation, and this is a very interesting marker, is organizational awareness. Organizational awareness has to do with all of those things where you walk into a room and you can quickly assess what the dynamics are, what the power structure is, who is the big baboon, who makes the decisions here, who influences others. And we're going to talk about why this trend is so dramatic, and later we'll talk about what we can do to make this better. But suffice it to say, when you don't know who's making the decisions and you don't know how to effectively communicate with the guy in charge, with the big baboon, or you don't respect the big baboon, you're not going to get a yes when you're trying to sell something to him or convince him. So these are negative trends that I am seeing. And I thought it might be fun if we took a look kind of from a big picture, the overarching attributes. the emotional intelligence markers, male versus female. So we notice that female seems to be coming out of the chute with the emotional intelligence and social intelligence, much stronger emotional awareness, almost equals self-management skills, a little bit more of a drive than men do, and not much, but a little bit. But they seem to have very strong leadership skills, organizational awareness, and of course, very strong relationship management. I think we're going to see some massive trends in franchising towards this female entrepreneur, this female business owner. I think it is a massive trend going down. And franchisors need to be jumping on board with marketing to attracting, creating systems and processes to onboard these women, because I think they're going to be our future leaders.